What's going on? I'm Mark, and today, or tonight, I guess, I'm here to talk to you about the power of words. So, I wanted to start with a really inspiring story about a man named Dan Jansen. He was an Olympic level speed skater who had a ton of non Olympic success. He won a couple, or a bunch actually, of World Cup championships and some World Sprint championships, but he really struggled to find the podium at the Olympics. And there was talk in the media about him being one of the biggest, or potentially one of the biggest, chokers in sports history. And because obviously he was struggling to win a medal, even though he's doing so well off the outside of the Olympics. Um, Dan Jansen competed in 4 Olympics, and one of the most memorable ones in 1988. He was favored to win the 500 meter, and he got a call a few hours before the race, and he found out that his sister had lost her battle with leukemia. And this was something that he and the rest of his family, I think, were pretty unaware of, and it really threw him off emotionally. He tried to mobilize himself, put his skates on, and hit the ice to race in the 500. And within the first few meters, Dan fell and he came in last. A few days later, he raced in the 1000. He dedicated this race to his sister Jane, and he was actually leading for the majority of the race, and he was on pace to set a world record, and he fell again. So this was a huge kind of turning point in his career, and things kind of went downhill from here. The following Olympics in 1992, he underperformed again and didn't reach the podium. And then going into his last Olympics in 1994, he started working with a performance psychologist named Jim Lair. Jim Lair is a performance psychologist who's worked with a ton of elite athletes across a lot of different sports. And he's a really big proponent of keeping a training log to record a bunch of physical and mental variables. And one thing that I found really interesting in this story was a conversation that he had with Dan leading up to the Olympics. He said, "Okay, Dan, what do you want to finish your career on?" And Dan said, "Well, I really want to break the 36-second barrier." At the time in speed skating, people didn't think that this was humanly possible, kind of similar to running a marathon in under 2 hours. And then the other thing he said was, "I just want to finish my career with some kind of Olympic victory. It doesn't have to be a gold, but I would love to reach the podium, because after this, I'm not going to skate again." And Jim replied, "Okay, Dan, from now on, at the top of your training log, I want you to write 2 things. The first thing is 35:99. And I want you to start believing that this is possible for you to achieve before the end of your career. And the next thing was, I want you to write in all caps, I love the 1000. Now, Dan Jansen really didn't like the 1000. He didn't feel like he was an endurance guy. He really did it for training purposes. So his attitude towards the 1000 was not great. But Jim really wanted to try to get him to change his mindset and the story that he had built up around this event by getting him to repeatedly write "I love the 1000" in his training log. Lo and behold, before the 1994 Olympics, Dan breaks the 36-second barrier 3 times. And he says to Jim, "You know what, Jim, I actually think I like the 1000 a lot more than the 500. And he would end up placing 8th in the 1994 Olympics, and he set a world record and won the gold in the 1000 meter. So I think that this story and all the journaling and stuff, the work that he did with Jim Lair, I think it's a true testament to the power of words and how they can affect our brains and alter the way that we think and feel about ourselves and the things that we do. I think all it takes is just kind of changing the content and the frequency of the story that you tell yourself." On a more personal note, this was something that really inspired me this summer when I was writing the MCAT. This is by far one of the biggest challenges that I've faced. And I recognized that keeping a positive mindset was really, really important, because I would even see in my scores, if I get really flustered at the beginning of an exam in the first section, it would carry through and my scores would just drop. So this is something that I tried to emulate, was keeping my own kind of MCAT training log. 2 things that I wrote were, 1, I'm capable of 528, because that's a perfect score. The other thing is, I love cars, which I did not love. And for anyone, I know Brooke's smiling, for anyone who's written the MCAT, is not a great section. A lot of people struggle with it, including myself. So that was something that I kind of tried to change my mindset about. And I noticed how much the journaling and all of the work that I've done over the summer has translated into my athletic career. I'm in my 5th year of undergrad, 5th year playing varsity rugby, and I would say by far this is the best rugby that I've ever played. And I can definitely attribute it to some of the work that I've done with journaling and trying to change my internal dialogue to see myself and the things that I do in a more positive light. For me, I'm definitely overly self-critical, and this causes me to have a hard time embracing the positive aspects of my game. And instead I fixate on things that I don't do well. So even if I have a really good game and people tell me, hey, like you're really on today, if I make a bad pass, that's the only thing I can think about. But doing all the work through journaling and repeatedly writing like, hey, like about how well I did in practice, it's allowed me to rewire my brain in a way that I can actively take note of the positive things that I've done, even in games where I don't actually play that well statistically. So I think that that's again like another really good example of the power of words and how I've used them to kind of change the way that I see myself, and I do think it's improved my performance overall. Before I go, I want to leave everyone with a quote. I'm sure many of us have heard it, but it's always good to have a reminder. It's by Henry Ford, and he says, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." And I think that's really applicable to this. And as all of us head into exams or we round off the ends of our season, I just want everyone to, if there's one big takeaway, is just try to believe in yourself. Keep telling yourself you can do something over and over, and before you know it, you'll be doing it. So thank you for listening. Appreciate